Hello, this video is going to help you get started on your Chapter 6 loops practice. I'm going to step you through the examples that I did in class, but it's going to show you how you can set up this scenario where you have a method for each problem that you want to solve, and you call that method from the main driver. And we're going to do that in JDoodle. This will also emphasize your loop structures. So we want to keep main, but we are going to delete what's inside there because we're going to write our own code. And we're going to start with an example of a do-while loop. That's one of our loops that we have been studying. A do-while loop is a loop that is a post-test loop. All loops start with an initialization, so there's our initialization. We have a do, and we're going to, the spacing is not automatic in this environment, so it's going to be do followed by a curly brace. And then everything inside here is what we call the body of the loop. And for this particular one, we're just going to system.out.print. I'm not going to use print line. I want to print it horizontally instead of vertically. Print line puts in a carriage return or a return at the end of each line. So I'm just going to print the number followed by a space. I'm going to use concatenation there. And then inside the loop, I have to increment my loop control variable. So I'm going to go I is going to be assigned I plus 100. So I'm counting by hundreds. Most often you will count by ones, but I'm going to just show an example of counting by something else. Followed by while. And then as long as I is greater than 0. So this is going to be a loop that is actually going to demonstrate counting down. Therefore, I need to change my plus to a minus. If I run this code, we just click execute, and it counts down by 100s. Now, as you guys are doing some additional exercises or the additional problems from some of your practice, you'll notice that this might be exercise 1 or problem 1. I'm going to want you to place that into a method. All methods need to be placed after the curly brace for main, which is this curly brace, and before the ending curly brace for the class. So methods are placed here. And they're going to be, most of them we are not going to return a value from. And because we are declaring it locally here and not inside its own class, we need to use public static void because it's not going to return anything. And I'll say exercise 1. That is going to be everything we just did up here. So I'm going to copy this and paste it down below. And we're going to replace this section of code then with a method call. So a method call uses the name of the method, which in this case is exercise 1, parens, semicolon. And that should actually set up and execute. And our results are the same. So that shows you how to set up a method. It reinforced the do loop. Remember, you have an initialization. You always have a guard in a loop. And you always have to have the update to the loop control variable. And then it also showed you how to do the method call for that exercise. So if I wanted to do another exercise, I believe the example that I had also posted a for loop. I'm going to do, let's just say, for loop example for my method. And I can copy this first line because that's going to be the same. I like to use a lot of copy paste. You do have to make sure that you name things or rename things. Like exercise 1 now is going to be named for loop example. And in the for loop, that's the loop that has your initialization. I'm going to say x is assigned 1. And your guard, I'll say x is less than or equal to 10. And your update, and I'll say x is assigned x plus 2. I'm going to count by 2's. All in one statement. So that particular line right there has the init, the guard, and the update all at once. Inside the for loop, this is the body of the loop. We're just going to system.out print, and we're going to print X. In order to make the output look a little bit nice, we will put a space between it. And now I don't want to run exercise 1 at the same time, so I'm going to just, don't delete it, but I would comment out exercise 1, leave the for loop example in there, and we're going to execute and see if we get our output. Now it tells me that I have an error. This reached into file while parsing, you guys should be familiar with from Greenfoot, and that basically just means that I need another curly brace somewhere, and I'm going to have to find where my curly brace should go. I've got my beginning of main, my ending of main. I have the beginning of exercise 1, beginning of the do loop, end of the do loop, end of exercise 1, beginning of the for loop, example, beginning of the actual for loop, and right here I did not close off that method. You can see how it highlighted right here, the matching curly brace. Now it should execute, and we have the numbers 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. These are the types of problems that are in that loops practice where you guys they're trying to get you to predict or output a series of different numbers. If I take a look at that one, that's my example. That's kind of what we just duplicated here. These are your exercises. So on your exercises, you're going to change the loop. So we want you to start with this loop, and we want you to change that loop so that it prints only the even numbers. So I've kind of given you a little bit of a hint on that. If we look at mine is printing odd numbers. You are to print even numbers. So keep in mind that you can always change this beginning value, and you can change the ending value here. You can change the increment inside this. It's important though, be careful, because I'm wanting you to use the while loop here. So the while loop is set up a little bit differently. If I were to take this example, I'm going to copy it and bring it back over to our environment here. I'm going to create a method for this. Actually, it's already a method. I'm going to name it while loop example. And it's a while loop, and I'm going to make it count by 5s. I++ right here will count by 1s. I want it to count by 5s. So I could do I plus equals 5. Or that's the same as doing I is assigned I plus 5. And so now I have a do, while, a for, and a while loop as my examples. And I might rename exercise 1 just to a do while example. And we will put the keyword loop. It's not a keyword. We will put the word loop in there just so that we have that. I'm going to comment out the for loop to make sure that my while loop will run, and will hopefully execute. And we have a mistake, and that is the static context error. I forgot to put in that keyword static here. Since I'm writing these methods all within the class, I need to use that keyword static. And I'm printing 1, 6, 11, and 16. So that gives you an example of each of the 3 different types of loops. I will have to change this name if I wanted it to execute. If I tried to run them all at once, this would be a good example of where I need to put in a return statement. So I would want to put in a system.out.println after each one of these in order for it to print. We'll see what happens here. So see how they kind of run together, like 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 1, 6, 11, 16, if I don't put in that print line. So I did a print line after the first execution. So if I want to put a space in there, a blank line, so to speak, or just it's really hitting a carriage return is what we would call it, we need to put that system.out.println between them. All right, that shows you how to set up this environment in JDoodle, how to write your exercises as loops. I should have modeled that you need to put your name up here and a little short description of the exercises that you're working on. And so there's a short description. So you guys are to complete this loops practice. That loops practice is to start with this particular loop, and then you're going to change it. So you're going to change it so it prints only the even numbers. Then you're going to change it so it prints numbers divisible by 3. And then it prints the square of each odd number. And then the bonus is an additional one. So there's 4 exercises there. And this should hopefully get you started on that.